Tucker Insider Calls presented by BetQL. Download the free BetQL app right now and get instant access to the industry's most advanced suite of sports betting tools right at your fingertips. What's going on, Ross? How you doing, man?
Steiny, Guru, I am doing fantastic. I am glad you're back this week, Steiny, and you showed up for game week.
Yes, wow. Absolutely. I don't need a preseason.
Call me. No, Guru, you don't even know. Our high schools play against each other Friday night. And maybe we should watch it together. We can we could be on video or FaceTime.
Do like a Manning cast.
And make a wager.
From my squad.
Make a wager, Ross.
Hey, these are two powerhouses, and I'm not kidding.
Seriously, man.
Yeah. We'll talk about. Hey, Ross, I might ask you to do a little favor at the end of the interview for me, if you wouldn't mind. But here's where we're going to start, man. And I just want to throw this at you. It's a little different. You know, I think a lot of people feel like what the 49ers are attempting here with their quarterback situation is highly unusual, really unique. And the fact that they're essentially trying to win a Super Bowl and develop a young quarterback at the same time, it's really unique and it's really hard. After Sunday's game, in how many NFL cities, given the unique nature of the 49ers quarterback situation, would this question have been asked? Kyle, did you at any point during Sunday's game consider putting Jimmy Garoppolo in the game? And can we assume Trey Lance is starting week 2? You think they'd ask that in Philly?
Definitely not. In fact, there's not many cities where they would ask that. Right now, I'd have to think about if there are any.
See, I think the opposite. I think in Philly, given the craziness that the 49ers have put themselves in.
Oh! I didn't understand the question. Are you kidding? 1,000%.
I was shocked. He said, yeah.
1,000% they would ask that in Philly.
Right.
Oh, my gosh. Given the situation, they would ask that in most cities. They'd say, did you think about putting Jimmy in? Who's starting week 2? Yeah, because they need something to talk about. And as long as Jimmy... Here's the thing. And we all know this. As long as Jimmy Garoppolo is on the roster, the Niners are going to perpetually get these questions, not only until Trey Lance plays well, but honestly, even after that. I mean, until the point where Jimmy's no longer there or Trey Lance puts together a number of really good games in a row, I think these questions are going to continue to come. It's the nature of the media that we're in, and I think probably deservingly so.
Ross, we just played some sound from Mike Martz, the former ball coach, and it was not pretty at all about Trey Lance. This was before he obliterated everything about him, and I'm not letting that poison my thought process. But I'm catching heat out here, Ross, because I told Steiny, I don't blame Trey for the loss in Chicago. I know it was wet and it was muddy, but I wasn't overly impressed, and I'm catching heat. What did you make of Trey Lance's performance in the Chi Sunday? Yeah,
you know what? Honestly, that field was a disgrace. The conditions were a disgrace. That was like a monsoon. I'm not saying, the interception to Eddie Jackson was bad. It was a bad decision. It was a bad throw. But I am not making any big generalization about Trey Lance based on that. I feel like we forget this guy played 1 year of FCS football. He played 1 year against Montana and Montana State and Illinois State. Now he's starting the opener in Chicago. It's not Illinois State. It's the Bears, like the Chicago Bears. And it's a monsoon. I don't think we need to see at least 2 more games before anybody says anything. We just need to see progress these next 2 games. And it's going to happen. I'd be very surprised if they lost to the Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks are better, than we thought they were going to be, which is interesting. And also, no Elijah Mitchell, I think, is a problem for the Niners because he was running well. But I still think there's a reason why the Niners are big-time favorites in this game against the Seahawks.
Ross Tucker joining us on 95.7 The Game. You can hear him every Tuesday here at 1:30. He's our man. Let me ask you this. As a former offensive lineman, and I hadn't brought this up on the show yet, and I don't get it. And you can tell me what you think of Pro Football Focus, but they evaluated the 49ers' offensive line on Sunday and concluded that they were the fifth best offensive line of the 32 teams in Week 1. Can you explain that to me in some way?
Yeah, I mean, what they do is they evaluate every player individually on every play, and they give them a grade based on what the player was asked to do. And then I think they total or average those out to decide which offensive line played the best. I got to tell you guys, I don't know how many other games you watched, but there was some bad ball going on around football. I mean, even the Eagles, who I think probably have the best O-line in the NFL, there were guys coming free. I mean, they had blitzers that were unblocked. It wasn't real good, guys. I mean, so I think the Niners, I'm okay with that ranking. You thought that that's way too high?
Well, no. I don't know. What the hell do I know about the offensive line? But a team scored only 10 points. You know, they didn't run the ball great. Lance was under a little bit of duress. I don't know.
I mean, they ran it pretty well. And, who was going to do more than that in that weather? Look, I know we're on the air. We're talking Niners football. We have to. It's the only game we have to talk about. But there's a reason why every pro bettor I know, because we talk about this on the Even Money podcast, they immediately hit the under on like everything when they saw the weather. I mean, that game, first of all, I would say this. If you look at NFL last couple of years, first of all, Week 1 is a unique entity unto itself, really, to begin with. Look at like the Packers getting blown out by the Saints last year in Jacksonville, which was just weird. There's not a lot of correlation between Week 1 and what happens after that, because Week 1 is a totally unique animal because you don't know how the teams are going to come out that first game. You don't know how they're going to use certain new players. Then you combine that with the weather, which was about as bad a conditions you can play in, and it just makes for a pretty obvious to me. I'm not giving anybody a pass. I'm just saying I'm not going to really sit here and make strong judgments based on that.
I'm not mad at you, Ross. I speaking about other things happening around the league, I told Steiny when you got Aikman and Buck in the booth for Monday Night Football, even the last year's crew with Greasy and the gang, I thought it was disrespectful. You got the Manning cast, but I fell in love with it last night, Ross. But did anybody have ever a worse coaching debut than Nathaniel Hackett? What was he doing last night? Now, I feel like in Pop Warner, they would, what was that? You paid all that money for Russell Wilson, and you can't get it together and trust him? But on top of that, it was embarrassing. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, I mean, it's about as bad as I've seen because it's twofold, right? It's number one, why would you let the clock go down if you're then going to kick the field goal? I mean, call the timeout, kick the field goal. If you miss it, because there's a much higher likelihood that you'll miss it than there is that you'll make it. If you miss it, then you still have time to maybe get a stop and get the ball back. Then, so let's do the logic here, right? We talked about this on today's Even Money podcast. What is the chances of McManus making a 64-yard field goal? Maybe 10%.
Man.
Maybe we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's really good and say 10%. Okay, we'll say 10%.
Sure.
Well, what do you think the odds are of Russell Wilson converting a 4th and 5?
Hello?
Probably around like 50%, maybe a little less. And then if you convert that 4th and 5, what are the odds that McManus makes a much closer field goal? I don't know, probably around 50%, maybe a little better than 50. So 50% times 50% is 25%, which is way better than the chance of McManus making that field goal, which is 10% at best. Just a horrible, horrible miscalculation by Hackett. And, you know, it really matters. It really does matter because it's our only information on him. And first impressions are big. First impressions really do matter in life. And unfortunately now, for him, that's the first impression that everybody has of Nathaniel Hackett.
Ross Tucker joining us, and I don't know if you caught that, but two just sensational little pieces of news there. One, of course, bragging that 50% times 50% is 25%. That's not an easy one. That's that Princeton. That's that Princeton education for sure. And so I got a buddy whose dad went to West Point, and he sought me out this summer. His name's Ed Lawrence, and he goes, "Hey, I got to tell you, I love Ross Tucker. Can you tell Ross Tucker that I love Ross Tucker on the Army games, and I love hearing him on your show?" Anyway, his name is Ed Lawrence, and he thinks you do an incredible job on Army football. I just wanted to pass that along.
Well, hey, Ed, my question for you, Ed, is did you go to Princeton, the number 1 ranked school in the country? Because you're clearly a genius with impeccable taste who just gets it.
No, he went to West Point. About that? He went to West Point.
By the way, Steiny, for telling me that. It's like the thing where people come up to me somewhere, and they're like, "Hey, Ross, I hate to bother you, but I'm a big fan. I really like listening to your stuff." I'm always like, "Bro, you're not bothering me. I am very open to people coming up to me and telling me how great I am. That is not a bother. If that's a bother, what am I even doing? Please, anybody, social media, in person, to Steiny at the beach or wherever Ed Lawrence did it. Tell anybody you know or tell me how great I am. I'm very open to that."
Hey, Ross, since speaking about doing a good job on play-by-play, I'm watching Tampa Bay. I got my dinner Dallas, first Sunday night game of the year. I love Collinsworth. I love him. But when do you draw the line and say, you know what, Skipper, you need to sit this one out? He sounded like the lady that smokes cigarettes. What was that? I mean, take yourself off the call, man.
About that, I've kind of been there. And I was feeling for him because he's just trying to battle through, man. That is
it was awful.
Hey, I didn't. This is not scripted. I swear to God, Ross. But we've got Easy Ed Lawrence on the phone now. Mr. Lawrence, Ed. You're on the phone with Ross Tucker. Ed, you got to come through for me.
There he is.
Are you there?
Ed, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're talking to Ross. Hurry.
Hey, Ross, my man.
Ed, what's up? I don't know how much time we have. Tell me how great I am.
Every fall for me are those 4 or 5 games you do on CBS up at West Point. They're fantastic. And whatever you do to get yourself up from Wyomissing up to West Point, it's really appreciated by particularly grads like me. Just a few observations. I mean, of all the announcers, and I watch everybody. Nobody gets more excited about offensive linemen. I'll give you a good example. The last game, I guess it was last week. So you see a trap block, and all of a sudden, it was about a 30-second soliloquy there about what a trap block is and things like that. And the other thing is, you're always telling the audience about Army football, you know, that if they get within 2 yards on 4th down, they're going to go for it. And so I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but Army did the usual. They got 3, and it's 4th and 1. The problem was they were on their own 15, and all of a sudden you realize that Jeff Monken was going to go for it, and you got very excited. There's only one guy in American football that would ever do this, and there he is. And CBS put a picture of the coach cheering on the team, and they got it. Mainly because of your favorite fullback.
All right. We can't get too deep into Army football, Ed, but hey,
Ed,
thank you.
I appreciate it so much, man. Honestly, my mom was an Army brat. My grandpa was a career captain. I never served, but it is an honor to call those games. It's kind of my little way of showing my appreciation. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your kind words. And anybody listening that ever served, thank you guys so much from my family to yours. I really appreciate it.
All right.
There
Ross, you're the best, man. We'll
take it
talk to
easy.
you next week.
See you
Ed,
guys.
Ed, thanks for calling in. Eddie.